Hi, everyone. It's Plastic EP here, and welcome to the 800 show. And I've got a very special guest, Ballard. How are you, Ran?
Plastic, I am great, but what's even greater is 800 shows. Come on, man. That's a huge amount of shows. You're like a star. You've done
Hey,
everything.
you know what? You look so cool in those glasses that you just fit in there, you know?
Yeah, I just want to be part of the 800th, man. Part of the 800th,
Yeah,
feeling
but let me tell you,
groovy.
you're the cool of coolness. No joke. If there's anybody that I'm really impressed with its music, it's really yourself. I mean, I read your life story and I read about your band starting. You got a new album now coming out. Just tell everybody about the album because I want everybody to go and listen to music and go and buy the album. So tell them.
Well, we got a new album. We're going to talk about how we sort of got there, but just finished up the third record. It's called Anti-Social Mediocrity. So, Anti-Social Mediocrity, which is sort of the statement of the record of how it feels like maybe we've reached a peak and we're going backwards with social media. And, I've always written uh, lyrics and music that are about the earth and people and how you believe in yourself. And, how right now it seems like social media kind of has a dual effect, a good effect and not such a good effect. So, that's, we have some songs in there about the earth, about saving the earth, about aliens. And I'm really happy with the way the cut came out. We've already been played a bit on a few small radio stations, and it's coming out um, August 12th this month. And it'll be on all the streaming media. It'll be on Apple, it'll be on Spotify and SoundCloud and all that. All the many things. And I'm really kind of hoping to try to grab an audience here because Start's journey and my musical journey has been quite a long and unusual one, and it's very hard to intertwine to how I actually got to where I am from where I was. So, but it was
But
all
I'm going to say
musical
something.
only.
Having you on the 800 show, to me, it's a buzz because you understand that I like doing interviews, but I also like doing interviews with people that actually entertain me. Like, I really listen to what they got to say. And you're one of those dudes that's so cool that what a lot of
I've always,
people don't understand is that when we're not recording interviews with you, we're actually telling each other stories out of the show. And some
oh
of
yeah,
those stories you told
we
me,
we
you
have
can't put
we
them in
have a
the
whole
interview.
lot of stuff. We have a whole lot of stuff that we can't say with the camera on, man. We've talked about everybody and everything, right? I mean, my best friend, Plastic EP from Australia, hoping to be out there at some point on tour, and we'll be hanging out. And whenever he's in Hollywood, we'll be definitely hanging out there too. So
I can't wait, Ran. You know why?
happy
Because
800th, man.
I know we're on this 800 vibe. But I got to say, like, I actually think when it comes to music, I'm not joking. They've said a lot of things about Prince, what a genius he is, this and that. But I actually reckon when it comes to music and your life path, it's like you're a genius as well in your own way in what you do.
Well, yeah, I'm a genius in my own mind, so that always helps, man. It's the whole thing is just in life. You get some opportunities. Sometimes you get some small opportunities and large opportunities. I don't know how it all worked out. I ended up working and doing things that I worked with artists early on that later on I never knew I would work with, and it sort of formulated my whole musical journey, man. So, should we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, but I also want to say, right, I also want to say I found out during the week that one of the Lionel Richie songs, the film clip was actually filmed by Steve Binder, the guy that did the 1968 comeback to a special that I interviewed the guy. But not only
All
that,
right.
Michael Nesmith helped promote the song. Now, I don't know if it was all night long or dancing on the ceiling. It's one of those two.
It's probably dancing on the ceiling,
Yeah, but I'm
I would
saying,
think.
isn't it amazing? Because you got to understand where I am. There's a lot of people have told me, they said, listen, Plastic EP, until you came on the net, nobody's been able to sort of know what's going on in the world. And you're like this conduit that puts people together and sort of like people find out things that they didn't know and you help them put the dots together. And I actually reckon that's true. And I've been accredited that they said in the Beatle community, nobody knew what was going on until you popped up when the COVID was, and then everyone was knowing what every Beatle person was doing all over the world. And basically, I do interviews and people just click in and go, who's he interviewing today? Oh, I didn't know that. That fills in something I didn't know. So I'm like this human conduit that just comes from outer space and just
and
like
you're basically you're a Beatles monkey man from outer space, man. There's everything about the Beatles, about the Monkees, about the 60s music. You know more acts that I've worked with, and you're like the expert on the whole thing, man. The Cosmic Plastic EP, able to bring us through the universe of music, man, and I'm just glad to be one part of it.
Hey, that's great what you just said, but let me tell you something, talking about the Monkees. There was a rumor going around when I did my last 700 show. Somebody said they heard from Beatle people that Plastic EP's got his glasses wired up to a computer. So I got human screens. So when I need information, it just comes up there. So I've ran with that joke because it's not true. I've taken my glasses off 3 times, but because I've got a background, I'm not taking it off. There's nothing. They're just glasses. You know, they've just been with me all my musical journey. But you got to understand something. It's true. When I speak to Mr. Shampoo, he said to me, as soon as you put the glasses on, you transform into something completely different. And it's actually true. And he said the stars align for you, right? Like things that were meant to be were meant to be. And I know it's true because I'll give you one example. At first, I didn't want to believe it. But there's been too many things happening that are not a convenience. Like it's one out of a million that it happens. I'll give you an example, right? There was one particular Beatle person that was interviewed on 60 Minutes in Australia, right?
Right.
He was a cameraman, right? He was there at Let It Be, and he was there when they were recording and stuff. And I really wanted to interview him, and I found out he lived in Sydney, but he had no email, no nothing, no contact. Okay. Wow. So I said, I've got to contact this guy. It's in my head. Then what happens is, this is true. A week later, I'm going to interview someone, and guess what they said to me? Oh, and by the way, let's do the interview, but I'll get my friend, and he'll be on the interview too. And it was that guy.
Wow. Yeah, but that's
so what is the odds of that?
The odds with you are much larger than with any other human in the human race, okay? You've got this way of things falling right into whatever and interconnecting with the people who basically fall in your lap, and you're bringing this stuff, you're putting this stuff down for us for the rest of eternity, that we can go back and gather this information that you have luckily. And all I can say about your glasses is I see the reflection of your monitor, of your screen, and that's what makes it looks like, you're basically Max Headroom of the rock world. Do you remember Max Headroom?
Okay. I'm not Max Headroom, but I'm me, because you can't have a name Plastic EP. That's the first thing, which is real. Been going since 1978. And I'm no overnight success, right? I've worked hard for it. And the second thing is, you can't make it in this world when you've got a theme song, Hey Bananas, We Think You're Groovy. They just took you from here up there, and there's no interviewer that's got that song or looks like me or has my name. So I'm really unique, and I'm really proud of that, because I worked hard to create it. And all I can say is it's like Elvira. That's the only way I can explain it. Yeah. Elvira, when she's Elvira, she's a character. When I'm Plastic EP, I'm a character, but I'm bigger than life. And my wife knows that when these glasses are off, I'm just this humble mortal. Right. It's true.
Yeah.
I'm not like this,
We've had the off glasses discussions. We're just hanging and talking everything. But you know what? That happens with a lot of, I can tell you, okay, here's a quick story about putting your glasses on, right? One day I was covering one of my guys for Barry Manilow in Las Vegas, and we were walking from our car to the backstage to go get ready for a rehearsal to set up for the shows for the next 2 previous weeks, right? And Barry's just this guy. When I hung, a lot of guys I hang with, it's just like you and me. We're hanging, we're talking, and we're doing whatever, right? And then you put on the glasses and you get the plastic EP. I notice I'm walking towards the backstage and we're talking about stuff. And all of a sudden, as soon as he hits the place where people are, right, the guy that's talking to me turns into Barry Manilow, right? You know what I mean? Just like putting your glasses on. He just
It's
becomes,
instant.
you know, it's like, you know, there you are and you're set to do your thing. And it's, I've seen that, you know, people walking from backstage to get to on stage, right? And you click, 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 boom, put on the glasses, and it's like the Wizard of Oz, right?
I totally agree with you. Someone can walk on stage and bang, they're a different person. Totally agree. Whether you live in Hollywood or you live in LA, it doesn't matter what it is. You know what it is? This earth needs great people, right? And when I speak to people, and I told you, you're one of them. And my ears open up with these stories that you've told me in your career. A fabulous career, right? Where you've been a pioneer, producer. Your dad worked in TV in some of the greatest TV shows that ever was, like Batman, The Monkeys. You know, like, to me, the Munsters. I mean, you don't get any bigger than that. You're coming from a Hollywood like destination, and then you make your own music destination. It's like an extension of your family. That's how I see it. Like, you are the cool of coolness. It's true. How do you go on tour with Michael Jackson doing a bad tour, and you're programming stuff and Bubbles is hanging out with you? I mean, there you go. They put you in that category that no one can put you, and hanging out with the Jacksons. Am I right or not?
Yeah, well, like I said, how weird, right? I mean, it's like you said, all of a sudden the guy's in your life and you're interviewing him the next day. I mean, when I think about all these things, I mean, you know, I started everyone February 1964, okay? 8 years old. I wasn't, you know, I'm an old guy, but 8 years old, Beatles, Ed Sullivan, that's when I knew that's it. That's it. Here's what I'm going to do, right? Now, I was already reading scripts from between 8 and 10 years old because my dad was bringing them home from all the shows. So, you know, I kind of like was a bit sophisticated that way towards reading scripts and understanding the backgrounds of entertainment and that type of stuff. But, you know, at 8, after seeing the Beatles, I mean, it only took to about 9 years old when I bugged Pop enough to be able to get me my first electric guitar, right? And at that, I started to, you know, he was working on the Monkees shows. And between the Monkees records and the Beatles records, I sat down with electric guitar and basically, like a lot of kids, taught myself how to play, you know, and started playing songs and playing around and trying to figure out how to put the whole thing together, right? And I just, you know, I mean, this is by 9 years old, this is what I'm doing, playing guitar every day, you know, and Dad's coming home from, you know, work. I told you I had a great opportunity to go to the Monkees set and the Munster sets and stuff like that and see, you know, see all this behind the scenes of what the things are. You know, people, if you think about it, a lot of people don't get that experience, especially when you're young, knowing what you're seeing is like, you know, fake facades and actors and cameras and directors and, do you know what I mean? Producers and studios and, you know, so
How many kids would have loved to have been there? How many kids would have loved to experience that? But not only that, I've got to tell you, in 1964, that's the height of the Monsters craze, Monsters, because you had the Munsters and you had the Addams Family, and everyone's going crazy on buying Beatles stuff and Monster stuff. I mean, that's the height of pop culture right there. You're living the dream.
Oh yeah, well, I got to go in the. Remember the Munsters car? The, you know, the hot rod.
Yeah, they call it the what do they, hang on, it's going to come to me, the Munsters coach.
Yeah, right. Well, I rode in that, you know, sat there and got the, you know, we got to see all that and see him in full costume and regalia, you know, and kind of see that stuff. So, I mean, it was pretty trippy, you know, and I kind of took that the whole time, loving what my dad did and everything else. But to me, it was music. You know, I wanted to be into music. So I played. By the time I was 12, I convinced him to buy me an electric piano because, you know, I really thought, you know, I like guitar and I like bass and stuff, but piano's got this thing, you know, to me. I just had this attraction to that. So I put that into the repertoire. And then, you know, like a lot of kids from 13 on, that's all we did was play every song from every band, then from Beatles songs to Eric Clapton songs to the Cream to the Who to the whatever, and playing background, backyard parties and school dances and all that. And I was one of these in my repertoire. I would play the piano on one song, I'd play the guitar on another song, I'd go play the drums on another song, while the whole time I always sang a lead vocal, right? So I was, really seeing how these people worked in, that was kind of what was really great. Plastic was the 70s.
Before you're starting on the 70s, in 1964, I'm here in Australia. I'm 6 years old. I'm not going to hide my age. It's no big deal, but I'm 6 years old. The Beatles are playing in Melbourne in Festival Hall, one of the greatest concerts you can see. Go to YouTube and see it. It was filmed for the Beatles Go Shell. The Shell company, Petrol, sponsored the TV show, and they filmed it. And they left out certain songs. They cut them out of the show because they had like maybe a 30-minute show. So they had like I Saw Her Standing There and all these other songs. They cut them out and didn't put them in the show. And then they got lost. Right? So anyway, what I'm trying to say is in 1964, I'm 6. I don't know what's going on. Okay? This is true. 1967 comes along in July. I turned 9 years old, right, in 1967. The Monkees are on TV in July on the 9th. Batman was 1 week before, and we have black and white TV. We don't have colour till 1974. So now we talk about 1967 and your dad working in the shows. And they're the shows too. Batman and the Monkees were shown within like a week of each other here in Melbourne, Australia. And it's like, that's my generation. I understand the music. I see the Monkees. And I believe them. The Monkees play, that's for real. The Monkees live in a beach house, that's for real. The Monkees drive that monkey mobile. I want to do that too, to my grocery shop when I grow up. And I want to live in a beach house and be cool. When I'm 8 years old, I don't care about the wrecking crew backing them and all this crap. I'm not interested. When I saw them play, and I saw that TV show at 8 years old, I want to be a monkey. I got to be like these guys. They're so cool. And it's true. You can't make this stuff up. When you're 8 and you see something that's so believable, and that show was so believable, you know why? Because they used their real names. It's the first TV show where they used their real names. And they didn't have a parent to tell them what to do. It was something that's come out of nowhere. That's why the Monkees is a great show.
Well, and it was, the thing was that if you think about it too, at the same time, I don't know about Australia, but here, while the Monkees were on, and even before that, we had the Beatles cartoon show.
Yeah, that was huge.
Right? The Beatles cartoon show. So we grew up every Saturday morning. I was up, watching the Beatles, doing the guy doing the bad Ringo impression.
Yeah, that's right. But also got to say, do you know that was the highest rating cartoon? It got over 50% of the audience, right? And it wasn't shown in England until the 90s. The Beatles didn't want it shown because of the voices. So that's how crazy it is. But I'm telling you that the King Features Beatle cartoons got the highest rating cartoons ever on television. So this is like, you're living it. You know what I mean? You're living the peak of the greatest pop explosion, and that's coming back now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I sat in the Monkey Mobile, and I was on the set, and met the Monkees, and it was quite a thing. It was quite a thing, and I felt that's why I kind of as a child, here I am, starting at 8 years old. By the time I'm 12, I've already played for 4 years and tried to be a monkey, try to be a Beatle, and then realized, I got to get out and start doing it on my own, right? And we play gigs, and that's all I cared about, right? And playing gigs, and those guys were the songs that we played. That's why it was amazing for me later in life, to be sitting 20 feet from Eric Clapton, and he's playing White Room, right? And that's what I used to play when I was 15. In a backyard, for a bunch of people or at a school dance. And here I am, conversing with Eric that many years later. How many people actually make that transition and, start working with the hero?
You've heard the word metamorphosis, haven't you?
Yeah.
Someone said that to me, my friend Donna Lauren, right, who was on Shindig. She's fantastic. She's an American icon. She's in all the beach movies. And I said, can you
Right.
explain that to me? Right? And she said, listen,
Right.
when you dream it, it happens.
Yeah.
And I said, thanks for explaining it, because I realized that what was meant to be is meant to be. And I realized in life, no matter what you do, it's meant to be. Even in your career, you got to
Yeah.
understand the background you came from and what you've done and these big artists that you did. You couldn't dream it. Do you know what I mean? I can tell you an example, right? I'm 8 years old and I'm walking down the street. Song comes in my head, the whole complete song. I recorded the song when I was 23, exactly the way it came into my head when I was 8 years old.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's the whole, I mean, not to get too into the heaviness. I mean, I'd seen things back then that was part of my future, but I could definitely feel like I was in the right place. You know, I was always in these right places at the right time. Like I've said to you a couple times in our stories, I feel like the Forrest Gump of rock, right? I've always like all of a sudden I'm standing there and this is happening. I'm hit over here and that's happening. And that's what formulated me as a musician, sort of backed me up. And you also get to see, do you know what I mean? Like when you see how they get to live and backward, you already kind of know this is how I'm going to formulate my life. You're not just, oh, I want to be a rock star, play guitar. It's like I understood how to rehearse. I understood, you know, what happened was, you know, I played in the local bands and so forth. And by the time I was about 16, I decided, for me, keyboards was the whole thing. And we were listening to bands like Yes and Jethro Tull, right? So that's when I just started writing really original tunes and didn't want to play anybody's covers anymore. And we set the bar a little high, right? Because, you know, at 17 years old, I'm trying to play like Rick Wakeman, right? And you really got to put the, you know, put the effort. We weren't like just playing, you know, 3-chord songs, you know. I put towards doing this. And I realized then, already at that age, I had been playing 7 years, okay, at least. And I had experience with doing things and seeing how things were made. I said, you know what? I'm not that interested in playing the local gigs anymore. I'm going to put an original band together. We need to write songs. This is what we knew. No one's going to sign us to a record company playing a Doobie Brothers song, you know, or playing the White Room. We have to, you know, do our own thing. And I liked a very heavily progressive thing. So I played constantly, you know, 4 to 6 hours a day to rehearsing. And at 17, that's what I did. And I was already playing in bands and putting bands together. That's when my dad said, you know what? I realize he's not so interested in school and he's pretty good at music, but, you know, kid, you better have a backup. And, you know, he, as we talked about, he was in, you know, doing stagehand stuff, special effects for all those shows. At that point, he'd moved to Las Vegas, the family, and he was building sets for all the big Las Vegas shows, which was lucrative for him because he had his own set studio. And he started doing those shows at 17. This in Vegas, the MGM Hotel opened, which was the biggest hotel on the Strip ever, right? With the biggest show, 200 performers, you know, the biggest show in the world, right? And my dad lied about my age to the union. I was 17, right? You had to be 18 to at least to get into the union. But because they had so lack of people, he lied about my age. That's great because we didn't have the internet back then. Got me my union card, and I started working at the MGM on the Hallelujah Hollywood with these 200 showgirls and show guys. And, you know, this to support my music. So it was okay for me because we'd work 2 shows a night, right? 2 hours a bit. And I'd have all day to rehearse and after, you know, late mornings to rehearse and all that other stuff. So I started doing that and I was in props. Okay. But basically we worked all the acts. So there was an elephant act, a dog act. You know, you've been to these Las Vegas shows, right? You've seen them. And they have the showgirls dancing and we're handing them staves and stuff. And, you know, all the stuff's going on in the songs. And I'm working for this world famous act, Siegfried and Roy. They recently just died, you know, great guys. But, you know, here I am, 18, not even 18 years old, and I'm working for Siegfried and Roy, and I'm putting lions and tigers and panthers, right, into cages for the show, and we have to work on a cue system. So you're listening to the music the whole time, knowing what cues you have to be on what side of the stage, and putting the cats in the cage. And with any illusionist, basically, too, like they disappear things a lot with look up here so that they can throw it over there, right? You've seen this on TV. So I used to be this kid that stood behind the curtain, and when they disappear a cage, whoosh, they'd throw it back to me, and I'd have to catch it without anyone seeing it, right, in the curtains, right? So I'm doing this with Siegfried and Roy, and it's great money for us. I mean, I was a kid making a ton of money, right? And with the acts, if you do a good job with them, which we did, they tipped us every week as well. So we're making great bank. I'm buying synthesizers and recording equipment, and we're going. And, you know, I was friendly with Roy and Siegfried, and we were talking. I used to talk to Roy a lot. And he said, so you're, one day he walks in and he goes, so you're into the synthesizer. You know the synthesizer thing. You know the popcorn song. Beep, 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 beep. Do you know that song, right? I'm like, yeah, I know. I know that, right? He goes, can you do that for us? Can you make that for the show? Get this a synthesizer in. And so basically I went, it was my first programming gig. I got paid by Siggy and Roy to program a mini Moog, right? And take it to the orchestra, which was a union orchestra. The keyboard player explained to him how to work a synthesizer. And back then you had to turn the knobs and do it every sound and show them how to I did a few shows with them, you know, to help them through it. And then the guy saw what I did and did it on. So that was my first thing, the sound effects and programming and everything for Siegfried and Roy, right? You know, the illusionist. Well, I'm loading cats. And I'm taking Leo the lion and throwing him in his cage, right? And walking the elephant on stage. Talk about your surreal life, okay?
Man, that's scary. That to me scary. I'm not into big cats in case I become their dinner.
Yeah. Well, you know, okay, let me just say this about the whole thing. We were kids, okay? I'm 17, 18 years old. There's stage hands that are 40, 50, like my dad, you know, they're all running the stage and stuff. And we never could figure out why they let us, because we got tipped well for doing, other than our work pay, we got tipped well. And I was like, I wonder why. I was standing with the guy one day. I don't know why you guys didn't want to take this gig. It's a sweet gig. He goes, you know, you can get eaten by that lion at any moment, right? I'm like, I never thought of that. You know, I just, you know, you're young and dumb, right? Who knows, right? I'm like, hey, I don't care, man.
That's exactly. You see how things just come into place where they are, and this is what it's all about. You know, as I said, the amazing thing about you, Rand, it's like you got stories that no one knows, and these stories are so unique, right? And I know you're not rushing or to do a book or anything, but the fact you come on the show and tell the audience, the world out there, some of these stories, and my ears just go like, you know, they just open up to these entertainment stories that are so weird, right? That you wouldn't believe it. No, wait, you wouldn't believe it. And the thing is with you, Rand, I've got to tell you, working with Michael Jackson and having all these big crowds and you organising things and doing it. You know what I found that was your key thing that to me really stands out? No matter how big the event, no matter if it was like for the world stage, you have this coolness about you. You go about your job. You don't make a scene about who you are or what you do. You just do the job. And these other people with egos can't understand why you're so cool and you're not affected. To me, that's an art. That is an art. Believe me.
And I think that stems back, okay, to the reading scripts and realizing that this magic, whether it's a big artist or whatever it is all a stage. That these two people, there's 100 people behind making it happen, and everyone's got to keep their cool, just like a monkey shoot or a television, you know, whatever it is. There's all these people like my dad. Everyone's doing their job. That's what I saw when I was young. All of a sudden, right? First, I'm thrust into it, doing it myself, right? And then opportunities pop up, the programming opportunities. It gave me the opportunity, which thank you, Dad, for that, to buy the very expensive synthesizers back then that no one could buy. You know, I mean, they're very expensive to get. So it allowed me this to do that, to teach myself these things. And it already, up until 17, 18 years old, it's definitely the most unusual life that not everyone lives through and gets to do, right? I realize it's a pretty strange life up to there. Now, as you know, from there, it gets weirder, right? I mean, okay, so here I am, 17, 18 years old. I'm working this great gig, showgirl girlfriends. I'm a kid. They're all 20 years old, passing around the kid. You know, there's nothing but showgirls and guys and parties, and we're having a great time, making great money. I'm buying all this stuff, but I'm forming a band and writing songs because that's what I know I want to do. I have to get an original band together so I can go shop a record in Hollywood. I already knew that's what I needed to do. You know, most kids don't even know how to rehearse when they first start. I knew at that age what I needed to formulate. So I'm putting that together. And one of the bands I was in, the guitar player moved to Hollywood, joined this band called Axecraft, and I'm working at the height, making tons of money. Called me up and he said, "We need you, man. You know, we already have a lead singer, so you only have to sing background, but we need you playing keyboards." That's where I said, okay, yeah, you know, and I'm gonna go down and take the audition. And I said to my dad, you know, hey, I'm gonna thinking about going down and do this. And I can say this for my parents at least. They said, you know what, you're young, go do it. Doesn't matter. Yeah, you're making great, you have a great job, but guess what? You're in the union. So you can work in Hollywood, you can work in Vegas, wherever you want to work, you're never gonna not have work. So you got that behind you. That, you know, helped a little bit. It's a little bit of a parachute. So I went down, auditioned with the band, you know, nailed the audition, became part of the band right away. What was great was, you know, now I'm living center of Hollywood again, over on like off of Vine and Hollywood, literally off of Vine Street, right? So, you know, here we are in the 70s, living off of Vine in Hollywood with our hair down here, playing progressive rock music. And our rehearsal studios was this really famous place in Hollywood, Crossroads of the World. It's on Sunset Boulevard. And back then, all the managers had offices there, like the Jackson 5. Once again, Jacksons are going to run across my story many times. Loggins and Messina and a few others had management offices there. And we had a great rehearsal studio there, right? And it was just magic, you know. Sunset Boulevard in the 70s, rehearsing with the band, playing, right? And you know, starting to play gigs, you know, playing a little bit because you had to get out and play the Whiskey, you know, Gazzari, get out and play these gigs, right? So that you could gain your popularity, get your act together, right? The same time, I kind of didn't want to lose my lifestyle completely, right? Because, you know, you could play that really poor musician thing pretty well in Hollywood. But, you know, so I started working for, I went to work as sound and lighting on doing tons of TV shows. Okay, back then I was on Welcome Back Kotter, The Gong Show, myself. So I'm doing what my dad did. He's in Vegas building sets. I'm in Hollywood doing The Gong Show, Welcome Back Kotter. I'm doing tons of those like famous soap operas. Donnie and Marie had a show, right? So here's little
that.
12.
I love Donnie and Marie. I love Donnie and Marie. When I went to Vegas, it was Donnie and Marie. So to me, that's huge. You got to know them. Did you actually get to know Donnie and Marie?
Marie was 12. Okay, when I was working, I was like 19 at that point. So little Donnie and Marie came in with the Osmond, and it was the Donnie and Marie show. Remember, they had the skating and all that stuff. So I worked on that.
That's one of the greatest shows that came out. But let me tell you, when Marie did that song Paper Roses, I reckon it's one of the greatest songs.
She was 12. So, I mean, I'm a 19-year-old progressive rocker guy, right? So she looked at me like I was a Hell's Angel, right? But they talked to us. They were a little scared of us when they first came. But we got along with them. They were okay kids, you know, other than they didn't like coffee and wanted us to drink lemonade. Everything was pretty fun with them doing their things, but you bounce around a lot. So in the same Channel 5 lot, which used to be Desilu, okay, with Lucille Ricard, you know, their Desilu lot became Channel 5 studio their studio lot. Okay.
That's
And
where they did Star Trek, at the back of that studio.
yeah, they did Star Trek there. Like I said, I bounced from Donnie Marie over to the Jackson 5 set once again. Crossing the Jacksons, right? So, I'm at the Jackson 5 show too. And I'm a hep rocker, dude. So I remember back then talking to Tito, which years later I said, do you remember me from your TV show? I was giving you a hard time. He goes, oh, I do remember. Because we were the rocker guys, and they're these, hey, baby, I want, dancing around, right? And we were working. It was a show. It was a job to me because I just wanted to get rehearsal and get my record deal, right? So, we're doing that. I'm doing that in the daytime. That's my day job, okay? So think about that, okay? My day job, other than it was, the shows in Vegas, is now TV shows like my dad, the surreal show. Like I couldn't understand Welcome Back, Kotter at all.
Yeah, but also
okay?
got to ask you, were you there when the Jackson 5 had their own cartoon show?
No, I wasn't involved. I was there for the live show. They had a live show like Donnie and Marie. I know they had a cartoon, but yeah, I was there for the live show where they did the skits and all that other stuff. Michael was, like just a few years younger than me, and Tito was the kind of that one a little bit older. Anyway, that was my surreal daytime job.
I want to ask you about Welcome Back, Kotter, because that was a big hit in Australia. I mean, it really was. It was a big hit
all
on
over
TV
the world.
here.
All over. I totally didn't understand that show, okay? Because what happens when you're in the stage, you get a call. Like every day you call in and you go, okay, where do I go tomorrow? Some days it's a one-day gig. Some days it's a couple of months, right? Usually I was taking the places of people on vacation and all that other stuff. So I get a call, go over to ABC and, go to this Welcome Back Kotter show. Okay, EP, you're going to hate me for this. But when I worked television and when I was in a band in the 70s, I wouldn't even have a TV in my house, man. I didn't even know what was on TV. Okay, I knew the old stuff, the Monkees, but you know what? I didn't watch TV then. I didn't have time for it. And people, I'd work on shows and they go, did you see the show last week? I said, I worked on it for a week. Why would I want to watch the show until, so this was my surreal life, right? So I get to Welcome Back Kotter. And it's a live audience. You have your rehearsal days, your blocking days, and then it was, Friday nights was the show. They do the real show. They do, shoot 2 shows and then edit out of that because there'd be, mistakes or problems or whatever. So the first thing we get set up, and here's these cocky dudes, and I'm just like, hey, how you doing? I talked to John Travolta and the other guys, and who was actually nicer was Gabe Kaplan. He sat with me a while. He goes, you look like you're in a band. I'm like, yeah, well, we sat and talked, And, but these guys, they were kind of young, cocky kids, and I never heard of them before. So Friday night, is taping night, and they let people in. It was like Beatlemania, right? I mean, seriously, I had no idea. It was like Beatlemania, okay, or like the Monkees' first tours. The kids, they were almost all, young girls, or they bring them into the live stage, right? They're just going crazy already and screaming and everything. And then, you've probably seen this a few times with shows. What they do is they bring out and introduce the cast first, and then they start the show. Hi, this is Gabe Kaplan. Welcome to our show. And I'd like to introduce John Travolta, right? I swear to God, I thought we're in a sound stage, and they said they could hear us in the next sound stage, right? John Travolta comes out. Girls are fainting and trying to get off the stage, and he was like the biggest thing. I had no idea, right? And it was actually a bit difficult to do the show because to try to keep this young audience. Shows are, I'm sure when you're in Hollywood, you went to a show. And basically, when you have a live audience, the audience is sitting there. They have applause signs, right? And when they want you to applaud or scream at the end of something, they flash those. But until they do that, they really don't want you interrupting the show so much, right? Laughing or whatever. But, it's there because you have a flow of show, and we have to hear the actors say their lines. so many times their lines, when John Travolta would come on, he'd have to wait, like they wait to do their lines, right? So, you know, Gabe would say blah, blah, blah. And here comes John Travolta, walks out a door, and he just have to stand there and stand there and stand there, right? While they're screaming, till he finally could go, oh, up your nose with a rubber hose, you know, whatever he said, you know, that stuff. I was just amazed. Yeah, that was my crazy day job, other than my
What
crazy
a
night
day
job.
job that must have been. But also, I got to ask you, the Gong Show was a crazy show too.
I love the Gong Show.
How
We
crazy
used
is
to,
that show? We saw it in Australia. All these weirdos are coming up and doing things.
Chuck Barris, he had like the dating game, the wed, right? So he was totally respected at NBC, but he would do whatever you wanted, right? Because he had so many hit shows. We put the Gong Show on, which is actually in Studio One, where the Tonight Show's in Studio Two. Welcome, Chico and the Man's in Studio 3, and we're in the Gong Show in Studio 1. And it's this crazy Chuck coming out with his sunglasses on and a hat, introducing all these crazy acts, which some became famous, right? We had famous acts on there that came through. But if you remember the show, they had the orchestra, and he was always telling jokes. And then if you remembered it, they used to throw a bunch of stuff on the stage, and they had Gene, the dancing machine. Okay. And he would go and dun, 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 and then they throw all this stuff when it was filler, right? When we had an act that was late or whatever. And the funny thing is, Gene was the head prop guy, and he was just one of us, right? And Chuck would go out there, Gene, and do your dance, right? That. And then he'd go, just start throwing shit on stage. So we would just be grabbing props and everything and throwing them on stage. It was the craziest show to work on. It was like no other show on the lot, okay, because of Chuck Barris, right? And it was just nuts. Everybody coming in. Steve Martin. Steve Martin started on there, right? I mean, people like that. And then what's her name? I remember that girl, Judge. She was funny. And, they had the guys with the gong, and, it was quite, and believe me, you guys didn't see some of the stuff they had to cut out, because, what happens, there's something, he goes to do a tumble and whatever. So yeah, that was, once again, that was my day job.
But I'm going to ask you, with their budgets there, they had a lot of money. And then did they have a lot of parties outside of these shows that you worked on? They must have had so many huge parties, because these shows are successes. They got unlimited money, and you go out and they take you out and you just lose it. Is that true or not?
Oh, yeah. I went to some of the stuff. I went to Chuck Barris's, one of the barbecues he threw at the house. But I was trying to be in a band writing music. So to me, and this sounds like a bad thing, I would want to work and get done and get out of the studio. Yeah, I needed to get to my rehearsal studio, right? Because even though I felt like, here I am, this is my job, this is a wild thing, I'm supporting these guys doing all this really crazy stuff, but I'm doing it for money so that I can become famous, so I can have my record deal, so I can do these things, right? I saw what happened. I see how it works. So with the crazy day job, and then the Sunset Strip rehearsal halls and the whiskey and the parties we had doing there, and with the band in the 70s, believe me, people, that's what the only thing I sort of miss. And I think the kids are going to miss today, in this day and age, entertainers, no matter what. We used to have outrageous parties and outrageous times because we were sort of unusual at the time. Okay. Now everyone's a musician and a DJ, mixer, whatever, an actor. But back then it wasn't so much. When you said, oh, I'm a musician, people are like, oh, well, that's really interesting. Right. So I'm doing all of that while I'm doing the show. We're doing things, and we're starting to get a few breaks at the whiskey, and playing and so forth. But then my manager was friends with Doug Weston, who owned the Troubadour. Okay. And I don't know if you know, I'm sure you know some of the, because you know all of rock history, but the famous
Troubadour, Mike Nesmith used to play at the Troubadour. They all used
Tons
to
of
play there.
Fleetwood Mac, everybody hung in the bar if they weren't playing there. The Troubadour was one of the most famous clubs at the time. Okay. And the
Also,
famous
the
night,
Whiskey a Go-Go.
right, we played there as well. But the Troubadour was made Monday night was Discovery Night. So if you were booked on Monday night, there were record executives, other celebrities, all that other stuff that would come Monday night to see the new talent. And because our manager was friends with Doug Weston, we got our slot there, right? So Monday night, same stage as the Smothers Brothers, Elton John, Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles played there. Everyone, before they were even the Eagles, everybody has played on that stage. And here we are
Linda
playing
Ronstadt. Linda
Linda
Ronstadt.
Ronstadt. And when you went to that bar, believe me, Stevie Nicks was standing at the other end with what's his name. And this is what Hollywood life was like. You'd see what's his name I always saw Danny from Three Dog Night. Was always wherever I went, there was Danny for Three Dog. So we're hanging with these guys. We played the Troubadour. We have a great set. We do this big promotional campaign of the secret axe craft coming to change your world, and we play a set. We feel really good about it. And the next day, our manager is contacted by Jimmy Webb. You know who Jimmy Webb is.
He's a famous songwriter. He even wrote for Elvis.
He wrote for Elvis. He wrote.
He also wrote for Glenn Campbell.
Well, yeah, he wrote Wichita Lineman. By the time I get to Phoenix, he did MacArthur Park. He did. Jimmy Webb was the hit man back then. Big dude, lived in Beverly Hills, big house, had a studio on his grounds. And he called our manager and he said, you know what? I think there's something really interesting about these guys. I want them to come up, meet them, and let's work with them in the studio and see what we can do, which was another big, surrealistic break because he also wrote, I think, a couple Monkey songs too. So here I am connected to the Monkees, to Jimmy Webb, who also did all these other Glenn Campbell stuff, which was my mother's favorite stuff. And here I am in his studio in Beverly Hills, and he's going to try to teach us how to write songs and arrange, right? So he's working with us. And, I think I took it in more than the other guys because they kind of felt like this is how weird it was. They're like, Jimmy Webb, what does Jimmy Webb know about progressive rock music? I mean, he probably doesn't even know who Yes is, right? And I'm like, dudes, it's like Jimmy Webb. I'm pretty sure we can, learn something from this guy. He's only been in the business 20 more years than we'll, So, it was great hanging with him and having him trying to explain, just talking about songwriting and how he came up with concepts, and all this other stuff. But at the same time, the band, we were recording little bits and everyone was getting unhappy with that situation. But I was like, still, we should go with it because no one else was coming to us at the time and he was going to get us a record deal too. But we played this gig we used to play at Santa Monica Civic, like with Lodman's and Messina. We opened for those guys. And then we played the Pasadena Civic, which was a big place back then. It stands by the time, it's like 5,000 people standing, getting to, the old rock shows. I think it was like $3 a head to get in. So we got called to that gig and we were opening for this band called the Runaways, which the Runaways, the Runaways, these girls were literally 15, 16 years old. I don't think they even knew how to tune their guitars. Here we are, this progressive, I'm like with keyboards surrounded me, playing all this really hard progressive stuff. And these girls are, we were the next, we're the opening act to them. The promoter loved us so much. We stayed on stage, did like 3-4 encores and went into their time. Here's this guy's their famous manager yelling at us on the stage, get off the stage, because he wanted the girls to get on and work. Another encore we're playing. And so it was a great show for us, right? And we're in the big party room. And, back then you used the big parties. We had the big parties with all the things, all the favors, the party favors, everything's going on in the alcohol. Here's these little 15, 16-year-old girls looking at us like we're the Rolling Stones, hanging out with the promoter and stuff. And this A&R woman who was a lawyer came to us and sat next to me and said, what do you know, what's happening with you guys label wise? And I said, well, we're working with Jimmy Webb, but nothing's really happened yet. She goes, how would you like to be signed to Capitol Records? I think there's something really happening with your band. And I'm like, oh, gee, once again, that things that fall into your lap, like you were talking about earlier, how do all that roll together, right, to get invited to Capitol Records, home of the Beatles, right, and want to live the dream, right? So we go in to do that. What Capitol's going to do is our producer is going to be Ken Scott. I don't know if you know that name as a producer, but
I've
Ken Scott worked with the Beatles, David Bowie, Supertramp, Elton John, engineer, producer, famous. Okay. I mean, I can remember the first 2 days we sat with Ken, and all he did was tell us Beatles stories. I mean, we didn't play a lick of notes in the studio. He would just keep telling us Beatles stories and this recorder and Supertramp stories and all that other stuff. And he was going to be our producer. And as we were going through contract negotiations, and I'll keep this short, basically the lawyer came to me and said, your contract's not good with your manager. It's not good. I mean, I signed a contract. I was like 18 years old. I didn't know. Did I read it? No. Did I go to a lawyer? No. I signed the contract. Okay. Where do I sign? That's us. Where do we sign? It was the 70s. I can't say I'm the only one, because if you think about like Creedence Clearwater Revival, John Fogerty signed over all of his publishing. That's what happened in the 70s.
That's what happened in the 60s too.
60s and the 70s. And like I said, working for Chuck Berry, it happened in the 50s. Sign this contract. Don't worry, we'll take care of you. So that's what happened with Capitol Records. And I went to the band and I said, we're going to get, screwed over, fellas. We can't do this contract. We can't go to the thing. The lawyer literally said to me, if we won't let you continue unless you get rid of this manager or rewrite the contract with them. I tried to negotiate that with the band, and it was, the band's already has infighting. The problem with you to hear about a million other great bands, but they usually end up fighting amongst each others on who's going to get a single and break up before the first record.
The first person to go is the drummer when they make it big.
Ours was actually the vocalist got tossed. Anyway, the whole thing is I was frustrated. I was 20 years old. I'm like, all this stuff folded into play since I was 9, wanting to be whatever. I'm already a veteran, right? I'm just going to get another record deal. I don't care. I quit. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be one of those guys that got messed over with his contract and all that. And the other guys were against me because they were like, we got to stay with the guy. I go, you're never going to make any money, right? So I left that situation. And even though I was working TV and stuff, to tell you the truth, TV was very long hours. You do 8, 12, 16 hours. It was a big dedication to your life, okay? The fact is I could work 3 days and make more than most people made a week. And that was fine for me because I wanted to find my next band, okay?
Yeah, you had to focus what you want to do and you concentrated on the music, but you did the job to make the dough, to buy the equipment, to do what you want to do in life.
Right. Well, live, have food, do all that stuff. So, I said, this has taken a lot of my time. And I got in trouble with the union in LA because they said, you got to work more than 3 days a week. You got to work at least 5 days or 6 days a week. In Vegas, I hate to say this as a laziness, you could work 2 2-hour shows a night, and that's all you worked, and you made the same money, okay, along with your tips and everything else. So the first guy said, you know what, I'm trying to put a new band together, but I can't do it if I'm working 18 hours a day. I didn't want to become a stagehand, okay? I was a musician. So once again, popped back to Vegas, okay, started putting a band together, gathering more equipment, working shows. But then I wasn't in the tit shows I worked at Caesar's Palace, the Sahara, and so forth. So the gigs I was working now, I came back as a sound man instead of a prop man. Okay. One of the first gigs I did was Frank Sinatra. So I mic'd the first orchestra I've ever mic'd and did all that stuff. And back then, there were no wireless microphones really that worked well that anyone trusted. So everyone had a microphone with a wire. So there had to be a guy to hand the guy who's going to sing the microphone. And what your job was to page the microphone cable. So someone will walk across the stage and you give them enough cable and they walk back towards you and you pull up the slack. And if they turn, you make sure it doesn't trip them. Right? There was like, it's like lassoing is the best way I could call it. So I became this great mic dude. All right. So I'm with like Frank Sinatra every night would come out for 2 weeks and I'd have him mic and go, hey kid, get a haircut. Hand me $50. Right. And he had a gold-plated Shure microphone and he'd go out and do his thing. And he liked me because I wouldn't trip him on the mic cable. And so then I did Frank, I did Cher, I did Anne Margaret, I did Tony Orlando, I did Olivia Newton-John. Anyone that was big that played Vegas, I was the guy on the side of the stage feeding the microphone back and forth. And, you know, it was great because you got to know these people and you were right there watching them perform their shows, right?
So I got to say something. I'm a big fan of Anne Margaret, right? Oh, seriously.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. Now, when she did Bye Bye Birdie, that was a great movie, right? With Bobby Rydell.
Oh, yeah.
And I interviewed Bobby Rydell, and Bobby Rydell, as you know, has passed away. But he's one of the greatest guys. He came out to Australia all the time in the early years, and he loved Australia. And I love talking to the guy so much, all right? And I told him on an interview, I said, listen, my favourite person of all time is Anne Margaret. And I said, I married my wife and she looks a bit like Anne Margaret. But not only that, I said she was Elvis's equal. All right, when you see Viva Las Vegas, doesn't matter what movie you watch of his, but she's the mirror of him in a female version as far as I can see. When it comes to talent, when it comes to dancing, when it comes to singing, when it comes to doing everything on screen, it's like she made him look the greatest because she was equal to him. And you don't see that. And that's why Anne Margaret, to me, is one of the greatest entertainers out there and will always be. I've got a family. They've got a kid. And on the TV, he's running 24 hours a day. He's Viva Las Vegas. I'm not lying.
Well, you know, what's funny is, one, Anne Margaret was literally one of the nicest ladies to ever work with. She used to bring me cookies, okay? Because I handed her mic, right? And she'd, you know, had a good tipper and stuff, but she would always talk and take the time. How are you, son? How are you, sweetie? How are you, honey? Give you a little hug. And let me tell you something about, because I worked with, you know, Michael Jackson to whoever that, you know who I've worked with, and we'll go over that again. I've worked with them all. And the kids today, they say, well, the reason we use these devices, okay, is because we're singing and it's really hard to dance and sing at the same time. And I can tell you, bull, okay? Because Anne Margaret was amazing on stage. Costume changes, singing, dancing, no backup, no fake singing, no nothing. Singing, dancing, swaying, talking to the audience, doing her thing. The energy. Anne Margaret, amazing. Other than being a nice lady, okay, amazing entertainer, and would run circles around these kids today who say, well, I can't sing because I'm dancing, okay? Because I saw, you know who was another one back then, which a lot of people remember? Juliet Prowse. She was like amazing on stage. Singing,
she was in an
dancing.
Elvis movie.
Yeah, Juliet Prowse. I worked all those shows, right? I worked Sammy Davis Jr., man. I worked Dean Martin, dude. I worked all of those shows. I worked with all those guys.
Dean Martin is one of my idols. Dean Martin to me is the greatest, and I'll tell you why. When he teamed up with Jerry Lewis, right, he was always the straight man, but he was singing that Italian songs, right, like More.
There's a moon in your eye like a big pizza pie, that's Amore.
And I got to tell you, to me, did you know that Elvis looked up to him as one of his idols? Dean Martin was one of Elvis's idols.
Yeah, I knew that. Dean had that wonderful voice, and, you know, like we've talked about in my other shows, you know, my dad did the Matt Helm movies, which was Dean Martin. You know, when you look at them nowadays with the special effects, they're pretty kind of funny. But you know what? They were pretty cool then. I mean, Sharon Tate was on there. My dad worked on that movie. It's weird. I have all these weird, you know, Forrest Gumpy, weird connected. My dad did the Dean Martin stuff. Then one day, a couple of years later, I'm handing Dean his microphone. So, you know, I did those shows, but then one show kind of turned it around for me because I was playing, I'm self-taught. All right. I felt like this is what I wanted to do. I taught by listening and whatever. One of the shows I was working at the Tropicana, and we would have a musical guest, and then the girls would do the Folies Bergère, you know, dancing stuff. The guest for a while was Liberace. So he was with this guy, you know, would drive him on stage on his Rolls Royce and come out and play his piano. And so here I am, once again, the guy handing the microphone to Liberace. I remember the first time, and remember how he dressed, and you know, he's Liberace. I mean, come on, I've known him since my mom watched the Liberace show on TV or whatever. And I'm holding his microphone, and here he comes walking up, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Liberace." I'm like, no kidding, dude. You know, I would hand him his microphone, and when we push a piano out on stage, I would plug in his candelabra and I would plug in his microphone. That was my job for Liberace. Okay, the weird thing, though, was that this is at the Tropicana Hotel. I used to come in a couple hours every day, every couple nights I could, because every hotel has a great, like, 9-foot Steinway in the back. And whether it's used by the acts, or Libby had his own, like, 4 pianos that he would change pianos, and I would never touch those, right? But they had this great Steinway. So I used to go and play the Steinway a few hours before the show, you know, and I just play. I close my eyes and I'm playing stuff, whatever, it's coming in my head. That's, you know, improv, right? Which that's what used to blow people's mind because they're used to written music, and I would just play things I hear in my head. So all of a sudden I realized there's someone standing next to me, and it's Liberace. And I'm like, "Oh, sorry." He goes, wait. Why did you stop? I said, "Well, I mean, I'm sorry. I wasn't really supposed." He goes, no. He goes, "Play a little more of that." And I started playing it and again. And he just said, where did you learn to play like that? You have like the fastest hands I've ever seen. You know, I mean, you're really, and you're not, there's no music. You're just, this is, I go, "No, this is stuff in my head." You know, I'm a progressive music musician, and we have to make up our own bits. And he goes, "Well, I think you're really great, you know, and I'm going to do something for you." And he gets out, he goes, "Do you get a piece of paper?" He writes down, and he goes, "This is Guy Richard." He goes, "This is a guy who I play like when I need a double, like when I play in a concert and I need a second pianist playing with me and stuff." He goes, "This is my guy." Okay. He goes, I'm going to call him, tell him you can come to him, and I want you to go to him and see what he can do for you. Right. So, one, how trippy is it that, you know, I've already been playing for years, but this guy, Liberace, who's, you know, I mean, obviously a great piano player.
You recognize your talent. How great is that? And he opened the door for you. See, who does that? Some of these big artists don't want to know you. They got their own ego. I see it all the time.
No, I mean, he was a nice guy in general, but it was weird. I mean, so he sent me to this guy, Richard. And so the guy sat at his 9-foot grand and played. And I was like, "Oh my God." He goes, "Play me a little bit of stuff." I played him some as well. And he said, "So what do you want to do? What do you want to do with, you know?" He goes, "Obviously," he goes, "you play." I go, "Well, I have like keyboards, like mini Moogs and organs, and I have to learn to play different touches and stuff like that." He goes, "But literally, what do you want? Tell me what you want to do." And I go, "Well, I mean, I want to play like you." I mean, he was like, you know, I'm like, "Oh my God," right? I said, "I want to play like you." And he goes, "No, no way. No way." He goes, you play like no one I've ever seen. Okay. I don't understand even your fingering and all that." He goes, "All I want to teach you is the right fingering to play every scale in the piano in every key as quickly as you play everything that you play now. And so you understand," because I would play something. He goes, "And what's that?" I go, "I don't know. I didn't even know what chord I was playing. I was just playing stuff." And he said, "I don't want to change that." And he goes, "And then, you know, Libby talked to me and said that he saw some stuff from you as well." I'm only going to teach you that. That's all I'm going to teach you. And that's all you'll ever need. He goes, just stay how you are. Play, the stuff that you hear.
Yeah,
Right.
but see,
So that was,
he saw the uniqueness in you, right? I mean, a
yeah,
music person can understand what you're saying. But what I'm saying, after he helped you with that, how better a player do you reckon you were with the confidence that you had two people telling you, hey, you got your own style, you're unique. That's all you have to hear.
yeah. Especially at that age. I mean, let's just say it's an impressionable age and I got good impressions. Right. So that was good for us. So with all of that amazing, stuff that happened to me, and now I have a lot of confidence in my own playing, that's where I buckled down and just started putting together. So a couple six bands later, I went through members, I wrote new songs, I did all that other stuff. I moved down to the Laguna Beach to take that very quickly, had a gig with Chuck Berry, okay, which I've talked to you about. I played with Chuck, right, and I was putting my own band together, okay. Well, I finally, because of all of the things that happened for me, all the things that went, I finally found the financing and the wanting to put together the final band that was going to get the record deal. So I began a band called Start. Okay. Um, I then I put together a 2-year plan with Start, said I would record a record, then approach the labels, play the gigs, do all that stuff. Okay. Found the two members. I wanted to keep it small. So it was me on keyboards and vocals. And then I had my drummer and I had a bass player who also played Chapman's stick. All right. And the three of us played, but I was using technology already. I was using drum machines and sequencers and sampled vocals to help me make the show perfect, just like the record. So that was my upbringing, and what I started to next do into the future was I was taking technology out onto the stage that no one was taking out already. I built the band Start. Unfortunately, after 2 years, we didn't get the record deal that we wanted. Okay. So I closed the band down. That's when I started my career that I've talked to you about, and we can make another whole show about, working with Michael Jackson, Burt Bacharach, Quincy Jones, and all the people that between the studios, I put the band on the side. I put the band on hold because I was so busy making everybody else's records and doing their tours. And with my expertise, I became kind of worldwide known with my company of being able to do all the programming for every major tour basically in the universe. And that's what we did for years. So I had a huge studio. I dedicated myself to other people's careers, but I learned. I was in the studio when they wrote historic songs. So I sat there and watched Quincy produce. I watched Michael do his part. I watched Don Henley. I watched everyone in the studio. I learned so I learned how to make records in the studio from the best. Then touring, when you have 80,000 people in front of you and you do a modulation or change a chord or do something, and you're sitting there not in the show but watching the crowd, you see what happens in music that makes people freak out, that makes them go, oh my God, that's the greatest part, right? I studied that for years. To me, that was my way of studying how I was going to write my next music, from every crescendo to whatever. Okay. And we've talked many times about that, and we'll talk all those stories again. But basically, after 25 years of doing that, I've retired from doing everyone else's music, reformulated Start, released an album last year, and just finished a new album this year called Social Media Mediocrity. And it's a great record with a lot of intense production, a lot of intense playing. It's sort of like Genesis, Porcupine Tree, Phil Collins, Peter Gabriel. It's coming out this month, August the 12th. And all of this stuff that's happened to me, all these unique things that happened to me throughout my life, prepare me for every time I write a song or produce a song.
I want everyone to go out and buy the album. What a fantastic album it is. Go out there, buy it, and enjoy it. I want to thank you, Ren. It's been fantastic on the 800 show.
All right, great to be on the 800 show. Keep groovy, keep on being groovy. Talk to you soon, Plastic.
Thanks, Ren.
Love you, man.